Okay, so these videos are going to be a couple quick just um, videos to give you an overview of what we're expecting in the writing process and what we want your paper to look like. You should have many parts of this done already. Um, we have been through a number of steps in this. It's just a question of pulling it together into a final product. In this introductory video, we're just going to go over the overall structure, and then I'll go in depth in each part in a couple more videos. All right, so you should be familiar with this from the research papers that you all have, excuse me, been reading. This is basically what they all look like. So this is what we want your paper to mostly look like. In the introductory section, you start out with your problem. What are you doing and why should I care about it? What's your issue? This is a pretty broad overview of the problem you're interested in. It is not the lit review. That is something different. This is not where you talk about all the research. This is where you just frame what you're looking at and why we should care about it. You know, student sense of belonging is an important issue in the success of college students. Explain a little bit why. And then you want to also say briefly kind of what you do in the paper that's going to come. This shouldn't be a mystery novel. You want to tell us what we're going to be getting into. In the next step, you want to start summarizing the existing research on the topic that you're looking at, on the problem. This should be clearly organized around, whatever key topics are in the research. This is up to you. You have hopefully read those articles. You know what's in them. You want to emphasize here the key findings. So build up, the findings are what we know from the research. So you want to be building up a picture of what we know and building up to your next part, which is what you are going to do to build on that. This should be a summary. It should be pretty, it should be a page or three, but it needs to put us in the knowledge of what the key terms are, the key concepts, and what we know, what research has been done. Then once we know what's been done, this naturally follows that your research is going to build on that to contribute. What don't we know? Right? What do we think we might find out there based on the existing research? What am I doing and what am I asking about the world? This should be informed by your literature review. If you just ask a question that you just answered in your lit review, then you're not really building on it. You're just asking something we already know. Right? So it should be pretty clear by the time you get to the end of your lit review where your research question and hypotheses fit in. If you're doing a more qualitative project, you might not have specific hypotheses. That's okay. These research questions are the ones that guided your overall research project. They should be pretty clear and pretty focused. All right, next you're going to tell us how you went about answering these questions. You wrote some of this in your IRB proposals. What you intended to do. You're going to need to revise a lot of that based on what you did, because oftentimes that's going to change from what you wanted to do and what you had to end up doing. This should be a very detailed section. We want to know how many people you talked to, what kind of interviews you did, how long they lasted, what those people looked like, what their age, race, gender, background was. How many people did you talk to? Where did you find them? How did you sample them? If you used secondary data, an existing data source, you can't simply say, I use somebody else's data. You need to go and look at how they gathered that data and become familiar with it. And you need to explain to us how the data itself was originally gathered and why we should find it to be reliable data. So once you've told us what you went and did to find your data, your research, then you walk us through your analysis and findings. This is a big part of your paper. You should be laying out the evidence of how you're going to be answering your research question in the third part. So this is where you put tables if you have them. This is where you put quotes, where you discuss patterns, trends, particularly being guided by your research question. That should be the focus and guiding light of this whole process. In analysis, we're looking over our findings, we're looking for patterns, we're looking for trends. We're not trying to prove our hypotheses or prove something in particular, we should be open to what the data is telling us, and sometimes we'll find it doesn't actually go the way we thought. In the discussion conclusion, this is where you kind of wrap up those findings and say, what does it mean? How does this answer my research question? And why, in the conclusion, why is this more important beyond just kind of an interesting finding? Is this useful to a school? Is this useful to students? Is this useful to us as individuals? So the conclusion should step a little bit beyond the paper and say, how is this kind of interesting or useful more broadly to society? All right, in the next videos, we're going to dig into each step in a little bit more depth.